Our life. Exhibit A.
Come on, Zola.
That face.
I know.
That face, honey. Welcome back to the DNZ family. I know we changed it. No more Daily on the daily. We thought it was time for a change and some consistency.
Yeah.
So we're home, as you can tell. No more hospital. Just occasionally. We've been home since July 3rd. We know that it's been a couple months since we did our last video, but we've been dealing with our little one here, and she's home here, and this is Zola. I know a lot of you guys have been waiting to meet her and see how she's been doing, and we suck at updating, but we promise we'll be better. You okay?
You okay?
It's just the situation we were in. But now she's been home. She's been doing pretty well. She is on oxygen, as you guys can see, and on a pulse ox, which we don't have on her all day, but we have it on her all night.
And also an NG.
And also an NG to where she eats, because she can't take bottles. She can take bottles, but uh-oh.
Uh-oh. Shimmy at her. You okay?
Hi, honey. Hi. She can take bottles, but she can't like drink. Like the capacity that she needs to drink is a lot, and she can't do it right now with how small her lungs are. So we are planning on doing a G-tube here soon. Doctor's appointment coming up here soon. It's going to be all the specialties, so every specialty for your body. But you just said all of them.
Yeah, I mean, she's going to have her lung doctor, or our doctor, kind of everybody that we've already been seeing individually. They're going to be in one place, and we're going to have a big old meeting. And they're all going to evaluate her separately, kind of see where she's at. And more than likely, you're going to end up with getting the surgery for the G-tube.
We do plan on taking you guys along, okay, for the G-tube surgery. We are still scared just because of her little lungs. We're not ready, and hopefully we don't have to see her intubated again. We haven't seen her intubated since the beginning, which we've been very lucky. Ha. Ha. Yeah. 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 The NICU we were in the hospital for 7 months.
7 months, yeah.
We were in the NICU for about 6.5.
Yeah.
And then I was in the hospital since January 17th.
Yeah, so for a little bit of time, the time that she was pregnant, as you guys seen that, if you guys watched that last video.
And if you haven't, the link's down below.
Yeah, well, our last video was kind of our hospital stay with her being pregnant.
And how I ruptured at 14 weeks.
Yeah, and how she ruptured at 14 weeks, and yeah, the rest of that time we were in the NICU.
Yep.
Because this little one.
We were in the NICU, and I am gonna let him tell you a little bit about the delivery day, because I know we haven't gone over that. It was very scary, more for him than me. I was pretty much out the entire time, so I'm gonna let you go ahead and tell them.
Yeah, that day aged me like by 10 years. So she also had what they call a placenta. What is it? Previa. She had a placenta previa. Days before actual delivery, she started to spot here and there, and I felt bad for her because those last couple days she would have to go down to a different floor, so they would transfer us down to a different floor, to the labor and delivery floor, and they would start her on some medication like magnesium.
Which, if you guys have had it, it's the worst medication ever. It does help you stay pregnant, but it
also helps you like get ready for delivery.
Yeah.
Like help prepare
the brain
something.
bleeds and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But it makes you on fire, like your entire body's on fire.
And she's not even lying. Like,
yeah,
it's some bad stuff. Like, every other day she would bleed a couple spots. They'd rush her down there, and we'd be down there almost all day because they think that.
but I would tell
she's
them
gonna
like
have a
I'm
baby.
not.
Yeah, and like we would tell them like, hey, she's fine. Like, it was just a spotting here and there. It's okay. The day of the delivery, she actually started bleeding quite a bit, and they transferred us down there. And the nurse that was there was like, I think you guys are fine. You guys can go back up. And it was funny because like you were actually telling the nurse, no, like I think something's wrong. I think this is the time. And the nurse was like, no, you're fine. Go. So we got transferred back up, and no more than maybe a half an hour after getting up there, like she started other nurses back in, like, hey, like there's something wrong. She keeps bleeding, and I think the one doctor came in.
Yeah, to
and the
check
doctor,
me
yeah,
again.
and the doctor was like, no, I think you're gonna be okay. Da 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 da. And then at that exact moment, like I don't know if it's too much info, but she started like passing some pretty big blood clots. And the doctor seen it and was like, okay, well, no, we need to get you back down there.
And it was a rush, like it was an emergency C-section.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like, oh, we had time to be in the labor and delivery room and get everything set up. No, like by the time we got downstairs,
they seen how much she was actually bleeding, and they pretty much called everybody in. They threw me a gown, told me to gown up, and
we had to call everyone like really fast. We only called my dad and his mom, and that was it. Like we didn't have time for anything.
Yeah, and then they rushed us down to prep you for surgery, and then
they left you in the room.
Yeah, they left me
while
in.
you
So we went down. We had a labor and delivery room, so I stayed in the room. They rushed her off to get ready for surgery.
Room.
Yeah, the operation room, getting her ready for surgery.
To get my epidural.
Yeah, get her epidural and all that good stuff.
Which is crazy because the doctor that was like giving me the epidural, like I didn't flinch or anything, and he like said that he's like, well, wait, you didn't even like acknowledge the fact that I just poked you in the back, like.
And she was freaking out. Probably the entire pregnancy about the epidural. Her entire pregnancy, she was freaking out about the epidural because she goes, it can paralyze you, it can this, it can that.
But I was so scared at that moment because I didn't know whether she was going to be okay or not. So I think my mind was more on her than on myself.
And she came relatively early. I mean, she came at 28 weeks and 3 days, which is still like 3 months early.
She was born on February 24th, just so you guys
February
know.
24th, 2019.
Yeah.
So they got her ready, and that was like another long wait of my life because they didn't come in. It was like an hour of them getting you ready.
It was an hour, and then they were about to cut me open, and I was already dazed. Like they had given me something.
They like
else.
forgot about me.
Yeah, and I was like, hey, hold on, and I started throwing up eggs everywhere, and then I was like, where's my husband? And they were like, oh yeah, we'll go get him, and then they still didn't go get him, and then they asked the anesthesiologist if he was ready. And he's like, everything's good. He's talking to me. I'm like, where is my husband? So finally they went and got him.
Yeah. I come in there and they're like literally about to cut into you.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, fine. I better sit down real quick. And then that's when all the scariness began. That was like the start of it. So they cut into her for her C-section. They got the baby. They got the baby out fine. They got Zoe out fine. And they let me go see her really quick. And at that moment in time, like we heard little cries. Obviously, that we knew that she was going to have some lung issues. We didn't know how severe her lung issues were going to be.
And by the way, like I know it's going to get like really scary, I guess. And just so you guys know, like we're really thankful that she's here. Like we don't want you guys to think like that, you know, we're complaining in any way or anything like that.
No,
like
it's just our story.
Some of the things that happened shouldn't have happened, and they shouldn't have been said. And so we're a little bit frustrated by that, but in no way are we saying, you know, that we're mad or anything like that about the outcome.
Or that we shouldn't have been at that hospital. Too.
Yeah.
The hospital, like,
did amazing.
They did amazing.
Yeah.
They really did. It was just some miscommunications here and there, but
yeah. Some big ones, but
some big ones, yeah. Some big miscommunications, along with some actual scary things that had happened. So they got Zoe out, and they heard little cries. So obviously, we're happy at that moment that she's crying. You know, they heard little cries. It wasn't like I couldn't even hear them really. I just took the doctor's word for it. And then they let me see her real quick, and so I went in there.
And I didn't get to see her.
Yeah. She didn't get to see her right away because they took her off to a different room, and then I went in that room and they had her in like, usually with preemies they kind of put them in almost kind of like a plastic bag, to kind of simulate the wound. And so she was kind of wrapped up in her plastic bag, and she had her eyes open, and I looked at her, and she seemed like she was gonna be okay. And I'm like, okay, well, you want to go back in with your wife to finish up that surgery, and we'll get her off to the NICU. And I was like, okay, great. So I go back in there, and I sit down, and maybe a good half an hour passed by, and they're still working on her. And at that point, I'm like, there's something wrong here. Like, I don't understand why it's taking so long just to close her up. And then the surgeon told me, hey, we found something. We're going to need to ask you to step out. So my heart starts pounding pretty hard, and I step out and go back to our room in the labor and delivery floor. And that's when one of the rainbow nurses came and found me and was like, hey, we need to get you up to your baby like now. So obviously my heart just kind of explodes at that moment, and we rush off, and we're not even like walking, like we are running to her room. And they called a code. So she coded her first day of life, and I don't know if you guys know what a hospital code is, but they call the code pink, which is pretty much a medical emergency for pediatrics, so for children. They have a code blue for adults, and a code pink is for kids. So they call the code, and usually what happens when they call a code is everybody storms the room. Like they'll have, respiratory. They'll have everybody. They'll have pharmacy there for medications. They have all the doctors, all the nurses. Everybody who's free goes to that room because it's pretty serious. So we get to her room, and everybody is there, and I actually get stopped by one of the doctors before I go in the room, and she tells me that she was like, hey, before you go in there, I just want to inform you that it's not looking very good. She coded. She doesn't have a heartbeat right now. She's not breathing. She gave me a list of I can't even think of all the stuff that they did for her right now, because they gave her a lot of medicine, and I think they gave her some transfusions, and they gave her a whole bunch of stuff. So she kind of listed some of that stuff to me at that moment, and she was like, it just doesn't look good. Right now, our last ditch effort to pretty much save her life is to do rescue compressions. So that they had her, or the respiratory guy had his hands around her and just with his thumbs giving her chest compressions to try and.
That's how tiny she was.
To save her life. And
she was 2 pounds 7 ounces.
Yeah, she was 2 pounds 7 ounces when she was born, which is actually a decent size for having no fluid and lasting to 28 weeks. But obviously, I break down, and I mean, I'm thinking at that moment that she's gonna pass away. She's gone. So I actually kind of collapsed into a chair that they had behind me, and I'm crying like a little baby, and the doctor was like, "Do you want to go see her?" And I said yes. And I honestly think to this day, I honestly think that they were only giving her compressions for me, like to, not to tell me just yet that she's gone, So I get in there, and I'm telling you, there's 100 people in that room, and I'm scooting my way past everybody, and the only person doing something at this moment in time was the respiratory guy. He was the only one touching her right now. He's the only one kind of doing anything because everybody else had done their job already. And he's the one who's sitting there, with his hands like that, giving her chest compressions. And like I said, I'm a teary mess, but I go over her and I hold her head and I start praying over her and I start talking to her, and I'm telling her, you got this, like, you can do this, like, you can survive, like, you gotta fight for us. Mom hasn't even met you yet, like, you gotta fight for us. And I don't know, like, it gives me chills to this day, hearing there was somebody in the background was like, hey, stop compressions, we got a heartbeat. And I don't know, like, I don't, she shouldn't be here. I mean, like, she was gone. Like, looking at her laying there, she was white. It looked like she was already gone. She was pale, like it looked like she wasn't like, you see her now, like she has color to her, you know. She was pale, like it didn't look like she was there, and it was pretty amazing. Like I seen the color kind of come back to her, and they said stop compressions, we got a heartbeat, and they were able to intubate her at that point, and they were able to somewhat stabilize her, which was pretty amazing. It was very scary, but it was pretty amazing to see. And so they got her somewhat stabilized and intubated, and
Then they called you for me.
yeah, and then I sat down. Like they had, you know, we were in the room, or I was in the room, and I sat down because everybody was starting to kind of leave, and only the essential personnel was staying, and everybody else who they didn't need was leaving it. And then I think my mom called me. Somebody called me and was like,
Come down.
"Hey, I need you to come back over here for your wife. There's some stuff that they need to talk to you about. Like it's pretty urgent." Da da da. So.
And just so you guys know, he didn't just leave me and just like was like, okay, who cares? I told him to leave me.
She told me if anything, and it's funny that, so like if you're going into a situation like this with your significant other, like have a plan. Like that's all I can remember in that moment was our conversation. Like if something happens to both of us, go with Zoe, go with the baby.
Yeah.
And that's literally all I can remember, because if we didn't talk about that, I would be torn. Like I wouldn't know what to do. I would be freaking out.
And I told him like I'm gonna have everybody around. Like I will have people. Like, but she won't. They don't let people, just random family members, go back there. It has to be like a parent or a grandparent.
Yeah.
And you know,
Yeah, so,
I didn't feel comfortable with others.
Yeah. So like if you guys are going into a situation where, you know, you're having a preemie or you're having a high risk pregnancy, like talk about that stuff with your significant other, because you never know if it's going to come. We didn't think we were going to need that. We didn't think that it was going to come to that, but we had the conversation anyway.
No, you didn't think it was.
I didn't. I wanted to believe. I really did. I wanted to believe that everything was going to be perfect. Like everything was going to be fine, and everything was going to be perfect. But
I told him, like, I don't care what you think.
Yeah.
This is what I want. Please do what I want, because I can't tell you to do it when I'm out and not able to tell you.
Yeah, so that's what and it's funny because I actually remember that. That was the only thing I remember. It was like, she said go with the baby, she said go with the baby, she said go with the baby. So I rushed up there when they called me up there, and all of that happened, and then I was sitting down up there, and then they called me to come down to her. So I rushed down, and I'm needed in our old labor and delivery room. Like all of our family is piled in there at that time. Like I had my mom and my dad, her dad, her sisters, my brothers, my brother and sister.
Oh yeah, your brother.
My brother and sister, and some of her friends were all there, and they're freaking out back there too. So I don't know what's going on. And the nurse was like, I don't know who she is. Actually, I don't know if she was a nurse or PCA. I don't know what her title was, because this part is kind of
this is the part that really irritates us.
I remember few parts from this moment because it was just a lot happening. But I specifically remember her telling me. So I get in there. She looks at me and she goes, "Your wife's going to need a hysterectomy to save her life. She's bleeding. We can't stop the bleeding.
She's bleeding out.
She's bleeding out. She's bleeding out. She's going to need a hysterectomy to save her life." So obviously I'm like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "Yes, whatever you need to do to save her life, go. Like, go save. Why are you here? Go save her life." And so she walks. She doesn't even rush out of the room. Like she walks out of the room, and then I broke down. Like I didn't know what to do. I'm thinking my daughter still has a good chance of dying. My wife is on the operating table bleeding out. They can't stop the bleeding. So I literally just sit. I just sit down, and my whole family's around me trying to console me, and I'm out of it. And then that was a long wait. So maybe another good hour after that.
And then the doctor came.
Yeah, another good hour, and then no. I'm sorry. They came back in one time before that, and then this is another thing that got me pretty worried. They're like, another doctor came in and was like, "Hey, we found something. We're gonna have to call the cancer specialist." a cancer surgeon. They thought she had cancer. So
he's also thinking.
Yeah. So
he's thinking that his wife has cancer and she's bleeding out.
She's bleeding out, and then if the bleeding out doesn't get her, the cancer is gonna get her. And then my daughter's up there fighting for her life, and I'm just, and then it's like another. So that was like maybe a half an hour after that first incident, and then another half an hour goes by, and finally the cancer surgeon actually comes in, and he was actually the one that they called. It was weird. Like I didn't understand it, but they called the cancer surgeon for her hysterectomy.
Yeah.
But he sat down with us, and he was like, "Hey, like, just so you guys know, like your wife wasn't in any danger. Like we had the bleeding under control. She was bleeding. She did have a little bit of an uncontrolled bleed, but he was like, we had it under control. Like there was nothing life-threatening there." And he was like, so we didn't do a full hysterectomy. He goes, this is your guys' first child. He goes, I wanted to give you an opportunity to have another kid. So what I did was, I think you guys know from our previous videos too about her endometriosis and her PCOS. I know we've done.
Seen those videos.
Yeah, if you haven't seen those videos, we'll add those down there. But she has a really severe form of endometriosis, and we actually didn't know how bad her endo was till this day. And she has PCOS as well. And just getting pregnant, again, if you haven't seen those videos, like just getting pregnant was a whole ordeal. But so he goes, I seen in her chart that she has endo. Usually, I don't know who has endometriosis if you guys are watching this, but usually if you get pregnant, is it the progesterone?
Yeah, but you didn't go into all that.
Yeah, but usually the endo goes away during your pregnancy. Hers didn't. She has a really aggressive form of it, and hers didn't, and that's what they thought was the cancer. They actually didn't know that for sure that it was her endo. They actually did a biopsy and sent it off to the lab, and then a couple days later we got the result saying that it was non-cancerous.
Yeah.
But kind of got a little bit off track. But going back to the surgery, she up and she was good. Like they were able to stop the small bleed that she had.
Yeah. But I ended up getting stitches and staples all the way across the bottom of my stomach and all up the middle of it.
Yeah. And the reason they did that was because they wanted to check for like everything inside of her.
But it was like a worse recovery.
Yeah. They tried to keep her on bed rest, but she was like, no, like I'm going down there to see my daughter.
I barely even slept after my surgery. Like it was so bad.
But yeah, so they got you situated. Zoe was situated, and they came into right after your surgery. She was back at the room, and we were all there at the room. And then one of her doctors came in. He is probably the best doctor that
we had. I mean, we had some great doctors.
We've had some great doctors, but she, I think, top. The amount of stuff that she's done for this little girl is astronomical. It's amazing. Like I don't think she would have, like, our stay would have been anything near like how kind of like good our stay was.
Doctors aren't supposed to tell you this is what you need and you have to do it. No, they get your consent. They tell you all the pros and cons. And at that time, I had just gotten out of surgery, so I still was hopped up on drugs, and he was dealing with everything combined. But I am gonna tell you this. I don't care. She needs this. It was the nitric oxide, and she's like, it's gonna help her. There's this much percentage that it can't work. She did give us all the basics, but she's like, look, I'm gonna do it.
There's a lot of medical reasons why this is, but it was still kind of an experimental thing. What's up, girl? What's up? We're talking about you. And
she's like, what are you talking about, Willis?
So they did that, and they said that we would know if it would work in the first like 10 minutes. They said you should see a dramatic change in her oxygenation, and we did. Like, and she said that if it doesn't work, then it doesn't work. We'll have to try and do something else. But this is really kind of another last ditch effort, because they're like, she's on the highest amount of breathing support. Like she wasn't doing any breathing on her own, it was all through the ventilator.
And they were trying not to put in tubes or something like that.
Yeah.
Because
And
she
that would have
wouldn't
probably
have survived it.
Yeah, that would have probably been the next step, would be to cut her open and put tubes in her lungs. But this was the highest amount of like support from a machine that they could give her, and she was on the highest settings on that machine. And they said that, you know, this is kind of like the last option to keep her on the machine. I'm talking about you.
You know, like the way her belly feels. Feel it. It's like she's like belly breathing a lot.
I'm not going to get into
Yeah.
all of it. It's just, it was an experimental thing at the time. Pretty much she met criteria
Yeah.
for this,
Needing it.
for needing it, like the way she was born, her lung size, and everything that she had went through. It would help her, and it was like nitric oxide, like they would.
But yeah, sorry, she just keeps staring at him.
Hi. But they did the nitrous oxide, and it worked. Her oxygenation went way up, and
From there on, she
from there
got
on,
better.
She got better.
And we had moments, of course, in the beginning that they were like, you know, we still don't know if she's going to pull through,
Yeah.
whatever. We had faith. There was something that made us have faith. I mean, God, of course, but we knew she was going to be okay. We had all the feels in the world that she was going to be okay. And
One ovary and one tube that was connected to that ovary, and they left the.
yeah, so she had a pretty good recovery. We were in the NICU for a really long time because her lungs took a long time to
Yeah,
heal.
it was pretty funny because everything else about her healed relatively quickly.
Yeah.
I mean, she even had like a couple brain bleeds, and
2 brain bleeds. One
She
that
had-
was 2, if you know what it is, it's a brain
it's a level 1.
she had a level 2. And
She had a level 1 and a level 2,
Yeah.
I believe.
And they both
I don't know
resolved.
which one's worse, but
Yeah.
I think
Level
the
2
2
is
is worse. Yeah,
Level 4 is bad.
yeah. I think the higher you go.
Yeah. So she had like those, and they resolved themselves. Everyone tells us we're extremely lucky that she didn't have to have like any heart surgery or like any surgery period while we were there.
Yeah, her heart was great. Like
Yeah.
really, we didn't have anything wrong with her heart, which was great.
Yeah.
I mean, everything else, like her eyes at one point were really bad.
Yeah.
That's just because, and a lot of this stuff was caused
From
due
prematurity.
to being premature and requiring oxygen. Because if you guys don't know, oxygen is actually considered a medication, and too much of it when you're born can result in brain bleeds, or can result in
Your eyes did
your eyes, yeah, your eyes going bad. And then it's funny because the way you fix that, when the baby gets older, is you give them more oxygen, because using it kind of as a medication to get their stats up, and
Yeah.
it kind of corrects itself.
Like now she's on oxygen and it's not hurting her or anything.
Yeah, she got the brain bleeds due to the compressions. She resolved itself. Her eyes throughout our stay, resolved itself. Her bilirubin levels were low at first.
They're high at first.
Which corrected itself. She actually started regulating her temperature fairly well
Pretty
early
quickly,
on.
too, yeah.
Really, her only major problem was her lungs.
Yeah.
And she required like every single breathing machine and treatment that they've had there. She started on 2 different types of ventilators, and then when she kind of graduated from that, she went to like, what was it, like CPAP? No, it was
She went
biphasic.
she went through
Yeah.
everything. I don't want to sit here and tell you guys every single machine, because we'd be here for like an hour explaining what it is to you guys and telling you guys, like, that's just gonna bore you guys to death.
But they've had stuff like, I know a lot of people know what a like a CPAP machine is. Like eventually she was
but
on like
still.
a CPAP machine, but she went through everything down to here now, where she's on like regular, like oxygen, pretty much like a regular flow of oxygen. So she's like, right now she's breathing on her own. She just needs a little bit extra oxygen to keep up her
Oxygen.
levels, pretty much. Oxygenation, yes.
But yeah, so she's. I mean, our NICU stay was really great. We can't complain.
I mean, if you guys want to know more about the machines and stuff, you let us know. We can do a separate video on that or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, like kind of more in detail about kind of like the
we learned
processes
a lot.
And they were kind of surprised how much we actually learned while we were there, because you'd be surprised how many parents kind of don't care. You know, like they'll have a preemie, they'll have a sick baby.
Not that they don't care. Like
some of them don't care. Like some of them weren't there the entire time. Like me, I worked full time the entire time. She was off, so she was there every day, all day. We even were blessed enough to get I don't know if you guys know what the Ronald McDonald House is, but they were able to put us up in a room which was right down the street.
Because we lived an hour away from the hospital.
Yeah, we lived an hour away from the hospital. So she would like sleep there and stay there throughout the day and night. And then, me, I would go to work, and I would actually go to work and then come there. You know, most of the time I would sleep there, get up extra early, and leave back to work or whatever I needed to do.
He's a police officer, and you guys know. And he works 12, so he would stay home when he had to work consecutively because we live close to the hospital. And then if he was off, because he'd be off 2 consecutive days, then he'd come to the hospital and stay with me at the hospital. Yeah.
So pretty much we were there around the clock with her.
Yeah, all the time.
And you'd be surprised how many people just we were there again for with her 6.5 months.
Yeah.
And we didn't. There were some rooms that you never see parents or anybody in.
We donated some stuff to those families too.
Yeah, we donated some stuff, not to the families, to the babies.
To the babies, but still.
Yeah, we donated in the course of our stay there. We learned how to pretty much do everything. We learned all the machines. We learned how to work all the machines, read all of the, they had a lot of monitors and stuff. We learned how to read all the monitors. We learned how to pretty much do her care. Most of the time, they loved that because it took the workload off them. We knew how to we were even knew how to take vitals and everything. We pretty much did a lot.
At one point, the hospital that we were at is such an amazing hospital, and we have them to thank for her, but at one point towards the end of her stay, the NICU had to shut down, and there were so many premature babies that they had to shut down the entire wing of the NICU because they couldn't take any more babies.
Yeah.
It was the worst thing that I have ever seen, and they even had to push try to get us out because of the fact that there were so many babies, and we had a bigger room because we had been there for so long, and we had to be kind of not kicked out but moved, which was fine because they got us home quicker.
They also felt comfortable with that just because we were there every day. We knew how to take care of her on oxygen. We knew how to work the machines. So we knew how to work her NG. There's a lot of stuff that you have to do for checking placement, and a lot people, I don't know any parents out there who have children on NGs, they know the struggle. We learned all that, and we learned it before we came home, because you have to take a class on some of this stuff before you even come home.
But even if you knew
we knew
it
before the class, but you still had to take the class. But that's why they kind of felt more comfortable, I think, with us more than any other parent kind of going home because we learned it.
Yeah. But so we've been, going through a lot lately, kind of trying to get, I think, our daily life just back on track. So that's why we haven't done an updated video. We would like to get ourselves on track to be making videos, especially with her growing up and stuff. We want to make videos every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, or something like that. So watch out for our videos. He's going to stay on me to make them.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely just been hard recently just because I mean, we are first-time parents.
Yeah.
You know,
and it's hard to like learn how to multitask with her, especially her having the oxygen. Like, we always have to watch and make sure. We always have to watch and make sure that like those prongs are in her nose and not above her face or something.
Yeah, she likes to grab them and put them in her mouth or put them above her head, and
so
that's kind of her lifeline right now. Like, if they're out for too long, like you just see on her machine that it just
starts going down.
She starts going down. They call that destatting, so she'll start to destat fairly quickly. You know, without those.
Yeah, but she is a big girl. She's growing really fast. She's holding up her head for the most part, unless she doesn't want to. And we're working with her now. We're doing a lot of PT and with her and trying to give her a lot of tummy time.
We get a lot of nurses that come to the house.
Yeah.
So we get like OT and PT that come to the house.
But
like another nurse that comes to the house.
Yeah, we have a lot of visitors. If you guys are NICU moms and dads or Preemie moms and dads, which is the same thing, you guys know that you guys get all the PT in the world and all the NICU, or all the nurses and.
Or if you know that you're gonna have a preemie or your baby's in the NICU right now, just know that when you come home, it's gonna be tough. It definitely is, but you will have help. And like, don't be afraid to ask for it either. Like, if you need government assistance, if you need like, there's programs like Help Me Grow and all of that stuff that will come to your house and help you with stuff.
And there's
there's so many programs out there. Like, it's very scary because we did this without knowing any of this. We had to do our own research and kind of figure out.
And we went from 2 incomes to 1 income.
Yeah, it's very difficult. But like, if you know you're gonna have a preemie or you're in the hospital now,
ask for help.
Ask for it. They have resources at the hospital. They have social workers and financial people at the hospital, and literally all you got to do is tell your nurse, and they'll call them down for you, or they'll set up a meeting with you.
Yep.
They have a lot of good resources that you can utilize.
Yeah. Tell them. Yeah, tell them. You tell them. But yeah, I completely agree with that. Like, reach out if you don't, you're too scared or you really don't know what ways to go. I mean, asking for help is better than just drowning your sorrows and being really depressed. And being really depressed, because trust me, we definitely have been there.
And me and her are both those people.
Yeah.
Like, both those people that want to do everything ourselves. Like, we're independent.
We don't like asking for help.
Yeah, we like to work for what we got. We don't like to ask for help.
Mm-hmm.
And this was that moment where we both had to swallow up our pride and ask, and take advantage of all of the help available.
I know a couple of you guys have reached out and have messaged or commented on my videos and told me on my last video, my pre-prom video, if you haven't watched it, the link's down below. But a lot of you guys have messaged me and said, that you guys are going through the same thing, and how did we survive like pre-prom, and what did we do? So our next video will be about pre-prom and how we successfully made it through. I want to add that she did end up going back to the hospital after a month of being home. It has been 2 months since she's been home.
Yeah, she's been 2 months since she's been home.
And she went back into the hospital overnight just because she had some breathing issues. She was given a breathing treatment, and now she has an inhaler here at home. And she was given some...
They thought she had pneumonia, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, they thought she had pneumonia because she had some fluid built up in her lungs. And we spent a night at the hospital.
Yeah, the same hospital that we were at.
Yeah. Spent a night there, and they helped her out. And she didn't have pneumonia. It turned out she didn't have pneumonia.
Yeah. But she was fine, and we got some medication, thank God, and it helped. So we've been on the medication still, and I mean, she's been doing fine since.
Never to doubt her ever in my life, ever again, when it comes to this little girl right here.
Yeah.
She's like, there's something wrong. I am like, there's something wrong. Because every time she says that there's something wrong and I say that there's not, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
So.
But sometimes I do overanalyze and I do take a step back because he tells me, like, look at her again, like, you know, I think she's fine, what do you think again?
Yeah.
So, because we are a family now.
Yes.
And I think that's it. I mean, we're really excited about, you know, creating more content and just being a part of the YouTube family again.
And if any of you guys went through anything similar to what we went through,
please comment below and let us know.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys need anything, you know, advice or whatever, just you can always message us. We're always here.
Yeah.
You know, we don't know everything, but man, we will.
And we're not doctors.
Yeah.
And we're not, you know.
We were put through the ringer, so
yeah.
we have a little bit of insight on kind of how.
We're giving you our experience.
Yeah. We do.
Okay. Well, thank you guys for watching our video. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. And I promise we will be uploading here soon, all the time.
More than what we've been.
Yeah. More consecutively.
More consecutively.
So yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we look forward for more videos, or to upload more videos.
Yes.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye for now. Say bye, Zola. Bye.
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 Okay.